Hi, I'm Peter Manos, Director of Research with ARC Advisory Group in Energy and Utilities and Smart Grids. And I'm here with Ian Skerrett of HiveMQ. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Peter. Nice to be here with you.
Great. Thanks for joining us. So, obviously, unplanned downtime is not something, it's the nemesis of those we serve, ultimately, who own the assets and operate them. And what is HiveMQ's value proposition that would be of most interest to our audience when it comes to helping to, avoid unplanned downtime?
So it's we probably have to talk about kind of what HiveMQ does, right? So we're an MQTT broker, and an MQTT is a protocol for moving data from energy assets potentially to the cloud.
Okay.
Right? And so we implement the broker part. So MQTT, there's a client and a broker, and the broker starts to become the single point of failure in an overall architecture. So
in terms of the flow of
the data, right? So for instance, if you have an oil wellhead, right, and you're trying to flow data from the oil wellhead to the cloud, right? So you'd be publishing MQTT data to the broker, and then different MES systems, different backend systems could be subscribing to that data, right? And so for continuous kind to avoid downtime, you need to make sure that broker stays running. Right?
Okay.
And HiveMQ provides a broker that runs in a clustered environment. So it's very high availability.
And high redundancy, high availability and redundancy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. And so that's really the genius of HiveMQ is if you want a broker that's running business critical systems, you need to have high availability redundancies built into it.
So the Hive has worker bees that are redundant, and HiveMQ has
exactly right. Yeah. So we kind of run in a cluster environment. So if you're running on the cloud, you can run on AWS or Azure. You can run in your own data center in a cluster environment in your own data center to provide that high availability.
So obviously, in a way, it's like you have to police the police. The data that we're using to monitor these real-time assets in operation, that system needs to be more reliable than the system it's monitoring.
Right. Because if the system goes down, then you're going to lose the data coming in from all your assets, right? And that's not going to be good. And so certain of our customers will be in a regulatory environment, right? So they can't lose the data, right? They have to have a continuous stream of data for audit reasons too. So
and now with ESG reporting increasing, and all the ongoing EHS that was going on before that for health and safety and environmental. That's exploding with more and more data.
Right.
So that in itself is a disruption, but then also obviously there are new disruptive technologies that need to be addressed. And so how do you help position those that you serve to address those?
Well, so I thought it was kind of interesting today during the keynote panels. They were talking, the gentleman from Pfizer was saying that data needs to be open, right? And kind of too long, there's proprietary technology. So like he used the example where there's a sensor company. The sensor has a really nice sensor, but they're sending all the data to their backend system, right? And he doesn't want their backend system. He wants a really good sensor.
Right. Every vendor's coming forth with its own backend, in other words.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that's not what customers want, right? And so I think the real disruption is going to be coming where you really need to use standard protocols to transmit data. And we're seeing more and more interest in the industrial automation manufacturing world of using MQTT to be that protocol. Okay. It was actually created back in the 90s for doing oil and gas pipeline monitoring with Phillips 66. So they really needed a lightweight protocol because the pipeline, kind of the connectivity of the pipeline is very unreliable. It's kind of through very slow networks.
So in remote locations, a lot of sections of the pipeline, that sort of thing, right?
Exactly, right. Okay. So that's why it was designed. And now what we're seeing is it's being adopted kind of more and more by different hardware vendors, right? Because the customer is saying, we don't want your proprietary protocol, right? We want a standard protocol so we can have consistency across different hardware vendors. So when we bring the data into our data lakes, it's all in the same format. And then we can actually do more trending information, do more analytics against that information in an easier way.
Fantastic. So you have this whole increased capabilities around automation, and you have all the user communities in different industries have their enterprise software solutions. So it sounds like there's some new needs around more enhanced services to meet the evolution that is going on all these fronts.
Yeah.
What would you like to
Well,
touch on with
and
that?
that's kind of where HiveMQ comes in providing those services. We provide kind of architectural service around designing new architectures for systems that are being put in place. We can integrate with other vendors with HiveMQ through our extension system. So we certainly see it as a complete solution, kind of from the hardware to different backend historians, different SCADA systems, to different MES systems.
And I guess you're also referring there to completeness across design versus operations with the cradle to grave aspects of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, so you need to be able to kind of do the proper architecture, get it all set up correctly. And then on the operations, what we do is we have actually tooling to help you run the system. So because one of the challenges when you roll out kind of a IoT system is often the devices become black boxes. You can't see, are they running correctly? You can't see, are they connecting correctly? Right? You can't do the troubleshooting and diagnostics if you're having a problem. And so we provide the tooling to make kind of what we call, it gives you the level of observability that you need to run a full-scale production system.
Fantastic. So there's a whole ecosystem then of partners that you're working with as well, and
sure.
Addressing that in ways that...
Yeah, and I think one of the exciting things that we actually announced here at the ARC Forum is around we're members of the Sparkplug specification. So Sparkplug is a new specification that's coming out that's built on top of MQDT. And so we're working with companies like Canary Labs, CirrusLink, Inductive Automation, Opto22 to really kind of formulate a specification that defines the payload formats of when a different type of hardware devices generate messages, it's in a consistent payload format. So when the historian takes those messages in, it understands what the context of the data.
So it rides along with it.
Yeah. So it's very much an ecosystem of partners that are getting behind that. So it's exciting stuff.
So as a utility industry guy, I think about how so much of the equipment in a utility in transmission and distribution has 30-year life, 40-year life.
Yep.
There are power plants with even longer lives than that are still before end of life. And here we are with OT infrastructure overlaying on that can be technologically obsolesced in 3 to 8 years very easily.
Yeah.
And the O&M on the policing of the police, right? These devices that are monitoring, helping us automate. What do you see in terms of that IT-OT convergence and how folks on the user end of it don't want to have to deal with a lot of one-offs in terms of communication protocols and other aspects?
And I think it really comes down to the data, right? It's how you need to get the data from the OT, from the equipment to the IT and kind of to the cloud. And kind of the traditional way is you do a lot of pairwise integrations, right? And that's just not sustainable.
Applications in their silo, integrating
right. And that's just not sustainable.
Right. Every time something changes, you have to...
Right. Exactly. Right. Or you get locked into one vendor, right? And it's really hard to kind of expand and kind of use best of breed solutions as things change, right? So I really see things changing in terms of kind of people, vendors and users, and really being driven by the end user saying, we need to get to open standards, right? Because we're tired of being locked in to things.
Well, that openness sounds great. So let's just conclude with any last things you'd like to mention to the listeners, and as well let us know how they can most easily get in touch with you and with
for sure.
HiveMQ, give your email address and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I've really enjoyed ARC Forum. It's kind of my first time here. It's great. Lots of great people to talk to. And it's really kind of encouraging to see people starting to think about kind of really kind of breaking down these data silos, right? And that's what we're really all about to help kind of enable that. So HiveMQ, best way to get in touch with us is through our website. So HiveMQ.com. people are welcome to email me. My name's ian.skerrett@hivemq.com. So feel free to email me. We publish a lot of information about MQTT, Sparkplug, different architecture, reference architectures on our website. So I encourage people to kind of go check that out too, for sure. We actually have a free download of our products. So if people want to do POCs, they're welcome to do that too. So we try and make it as easy as possible. So,
excellent.
But thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Here,
great talking with you.
Okay.
We've been listening to Ian Skerrett of HiveMQ, and this is ARC Advisor Group thanking you for your listening in with us.